So this project, you know, as a SoCal company and as a SoCal native myself, this one is really personal and probably, you know, the one we're most excited about. I grew up camping in Joshua Tree every year with my family. And so this will be the first true AutoCamp flagship in our own backyard, which is pretty exciting. We have 3 other operating properties so far. We have one up in the Russian River. We have one just outside of Yosemite National Park. And just this past weekend, actually, we opened our first East Coast property in Cape Cod. So I was out there for a couple of weeks getting that one up and running. And so it was really exciting to welcome our first guests on Friday. This is what the accommodations look like. So I guess I probably should have mentioned that from the beginning. You know, the Airstream is the key component of the AutoCamp experience. So these are our hotel rooms, essentially. So each unit has an Airstream and then some outdoor amenities. This is a photo from our Russian River property. So you'll have to use some imagination to replace the lush forest background with the desert landscape. But the basic facilities are the same. So you have an outdoor dining patio here. We have an individual fire pit at each site with some lounge chairs for roasting s'mores or even cooking meals over the fire pit, and a little walkway and some landscaping at each unit. Here's the clubhouse at our Yosemite property. So each location has a clubhouse, which is sort of the focal point of the property. It's where the first thing you see when you arrive, you check in at the clubhouse. That's where our front desk staff is. It's where the main sort of communal lounge space and outdoor lounge space is. We also have corporate meeting space because a component of our business model is catering to like corporate retreats and events. Here's what the inside of the accommodations look like. So this is our standard Airstream unit. We are exclusive partners with Airstream, so they are producing these for us. It's our design that we made in collaboration with them. So they're new units. They're super efficient, really well designed. Essentially, this looks very similar to each property with sort of a refresh on the furniture and the artwork to give a little bit of local flair to each one. Here's just some press highlights from over the last couple of years. The one that is most exciting to me is Time Magazine last year named us one of the 100 world's greatest places. You can see a little photo of the Airstream there. That's our Yosemite property. So this is the AutoCamp Joshua Tree site and some project details. So of the property owned by AutoCamp, which is 26 acres, and if you're not familiar, this is right off the highway. This is Sunburst Road, and this is Verbena Road. So our main entrance is up here on Verbena. So we're just developing these 12 acres in the middle and maintaining this sort of native undeveloped buffer between us and some of the adjacent highways and uses. It's 55 units total. So that's 51 standard units, 4 fully accessible units. And I'll show you a little photo of that later, but we do have fully ADA compliant accommodations, which is pretty exciting because I think that's pretty rare to find in this sort of outdoor experience. We are currently under construction. We're fully entitled. We have building permits. The construction duration is 9 to 10 months. So we've been in construction that we broke ground in November of last year. So they're currently doing a lot of the underground utilities and hopefully moving into vertical construction fairly soon. Our expected opening is this October. And we are currently hiring for our general manager. So I would encourage you all to reach out to any friends in the area in the hospitality industry and try to get the word out about that, because we certainly would prefer to hire from the local community for the general manager. And then once we have the general manager on board, we're going to be hiring a team of about 20 full-time employees. This is just some highlights of the experience at AutoCamp. So other than just the sort of physical facilities, what this looks like to guests, but just some highlights. You know, there's programming that we'll do in partnership with some local vendors such as yoga, meditation, acoustic musicians. We'll have a limited food program. So that means grab and go lunch options. We'll also sell barbecue kits that will be curated by a local chef. And guests can buy those and cook them over their fireplace. We'll have a retail shop with some food, beverages, local souvenirs, etc. We'll provide complimentary bicycles. So as you can tell, the property is in pretty close proximity to downtown Joshua Tree, which is a really great asset in our mind. So we really want to encourage our guests to hop on the bike and go explore some of the local businesses out there. Here's a rendering of the clubhouse from the front. So each clubhouse obviously looks a lot different. We really wanted to tie into this sort of desert funk aesthetic of Joshua Tree and some of the character of the developments out there. So this is a steel Quonset hut structure. This is a painted CMU block. This is kind of the main communal area, and this is the arrival experience. This is the same structure from the rear, which shows the open sliding glass, which during good weather that will be open for sort of indoor-outdoor experience, a communal fireplace, and a pool and spa out here. Some more 3D renderings. And of course, we want to talk about water. So I have a couple slides here. So we are doing a wastewater treatment facility. So all of the wastewater is treated and disposed of on site. This is the product that we're using out here. It's a Delta treatment systems, 5,500 gallons per day EcoPod. So it's a bacteria system. It also has denitrification. That was one of our requirements. So will be denitrified, and then it percolates back into the groundwater through a series of on-site leach lines. And I'm happy to provide more project specifications for that to anyone who is interested. Because from what I understand, this may be one of the first, at least of this size in your district. So that's exciting if we get to be a little bit of a pioneer there. Here are the offsite improvements. So the main ones are the widening of Verbena Road in coordination with Public Works. And then what I worked with Mark here is the increasing of our water main. So there's an existing 8-inch water main in the road there, and we are upsizing that to 12 throughout Verbena Road. And that was done mostly to meet our fire flow demands. And by the way, don't feel like you need to wait until the end with any questions. I'm happy to get interrupted if anyone wants to jump in at any point.
A CMU block, what would that be?
It's a concrete masonry unit.
To do what?
It's just your sort of typical like rectangular concrete block.
And its purpose is what?
Oh, it's just a structural element.
To do what? I mean, is it like the lobby or?
Oh
what?
yeah, that building. Sorry. So that building is our restrooms and some back of house space. So a manager's office, our electrical and IT closet, janitor's closet, as well as the restrooms.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes.
I'm not sure who to ask. This is Jane. I'm curious about what's happening to Verbena Road.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that live in the apartments across the street, and I know that the MTA buses travel that road. How is their traffic going to be handled during construction? And what are your plans for dealing with residents that are going to be across the street?
That's a great question, and we haven't finalized the designs for these, and we will need to get an encroachment permit. So there will be a traffic control plan. We haven't gotten to that stage yet in terms of actually developing that, but obviously, we want to take all those factors into consideration. So I'm absolutely open to recommendations, but we will be working with the Public Works Department on that traffic control plan.
Have you had any comments or questions from the apartments, from MBTA, from Sportsman's Club? I mean, you had to announce, I think, is the radius 500 feet or 1,000 feet that you wanted to do this project? What was the comments you were getting?
Sure. So we went through the full public entitlement process. We have a conditional use permit for this. So about a year and a half ago, we went to the board, the planning board, and gave a presentation, took public comments. We heard from a handful of folks. I think we had about 17 public comments. Everyone, a variety of comments. There was a little bit of a concern about traffic, mostly related to this area and to the turn lane coming off of the highway. There was definitely a high stress on incorporating solar into the project, which we have done. We're happy to be able to say that. We have solar. If you go back to where are we? This whole canopy over here will be will be covered with solar panels. So that will offset a good portion of our electricity usage. Definitely a lot of comments about landscaping and a preference to use native landscaping, which I'm hoping we've done a good job doing that. And I will get a little more into those details as well. Those were sort of the main comments. A little bit of fire concerns, which, we have fire pits at each unit, but we do prohibit traditional wood, and we provide an engineered wood product that's made of recycled wood, and it doesn't give off sparks. We also have fire hydrants on the property, 2 fire extinguishers at each Airstream site, 24/7 staff, and a fire road throughout the property. So hopefully we've done a good job of addressing anything that came up in the public.
I think the conditional use permit also said two entrances and exits. So you're coming on a very, very narrow 2-lane little community road there, and then going into what has been basically a residential road for those apartments. Where is your other ingress and egress point?
Well, so both egress points are onto Verbena Road. This detail is split. If I go back to the overall site view, we have one here, and then it loops around, and there's another right here.
But your only way in and out then is on Sunburst.
That's correct.
That was a problem for the Dollar General, which is across the street from you. They had originally planned to have their entrance on Sunburst as well, with trucks and everything. The community was able to get them to change that and put it on a little side road that was already there, and to keep that. It backs up there, it bottlenecks there. It's a narrow little road. People back in and out of there. And I thought you might have one exiting to the highway to the east of your project.
Right. We do not. We're trying to preserve sort of the native environment down there and over here, and kind of trying to focus everything.
And the fire department was okay with you only having really basically one way out?
Yeah. This was reviewed in coordination with the fire department. They have their full circulation throughout here, and these 2 main entrances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many units total will there be when the project's fully complete?
It's 55 units.
I had another question about the in and out off of Verbena.
Sure.
You show a little circle. I imagine there's a little circle drive there with temporary parking while people check in. That's the first entrance, closest to Sunburst. And then you're saying the second one is actually the end of that long road. I mean, I thought you might have a circle right there at Verbena where you could come in at one area and leave on the other. But it doesn't look like that. You have to go all the way around the park to get out of the second exit. So
this, it might be a little hard to see right here, but this is our parking lot. So this first entrance right here where you
Oh,
see
all right. I'm not seeing it right then.
Yeah, so this is this bulb shape here. There will be an entrance gate here with a communication box. And the fire department, of course, has a switch to that gate to just open it at any time. And then you can circulate throughout this parking lot here if you wanted to get straight out to this other entrance.
Okay, so is the parking lot going to be permanent parking, or will people be permanently parking by their trailer?
They will not. So we try to keep guest vehicular traffic exclusive to just the parking area. So it's truly a pedestrian experience around here. This, of course, is open to emergency vehicles, and it's designed to meet emergency vehicle standards. But it will be pedestrian only and staff carts, just for the sake of keeping it to be a more authentic, outdoor experience. So we don't have cars driving all over it.
Oh, okay. So that's how luggage gets there, maybe golf carts or something?
Yeah, we'll definitely shuttle luggage around with golf carts, and we also provide big radio flyer wagons with off-road tires for guests to use if they want to carry their own luggage. It's a mixture.
Thank you. I think the in and out was what I was most concerned about.
Sure. Hopefully that helped clear it up a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to just a couple other water stats. So we've got a 4-inch domestic water meter that is planned and a 2-inch irrigation meter. And then we have a separate 8-inch connection that's exclusively for fire suppression. We have our 5,500 gallons per day maximum usage. We're calculating based on what we're seeing at our other properties, realistically an average of 3,300 gallons per day. And that's when fully occupied. Fire flows are designed to meet 1,650 gallons per minute during the case of an emergency. So as I mentioned, our average water usage from what we're seeing at our other properties per occupied room is 60 gallons per day, which is significantly lower than a typical hotel, which is calculated at 100 gallons per day. That I believe to be in part due to the low flow fixtures that we have within the units. We definitely have informational signage informing guests to conserve water, and also just the type of guest that is coming here for more of an outdoor experience rather than someone going to a traditional resort or something. We've got drought tolerant landscaping and native landscaping. And I'm sure this is something that some folks here are probably particularly interested in. So I would be happy to connect with anyone to review, our current planting schedule. We're working with a local landscaper that has selected, desert plants. And I know there is a distinction between, drought tolerant desert landscaping and true native Mojave Desert landscaping. So we definitely want to make sure we're being as true to the local environment as we can. And I know you guys probably have some resources there. So over the next couple months, definitely would love to work together on that.
I have a
and
question.
Then the treated. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
The landscaping shown right now is including what appears to be smoke trees.
That's
that
right.
Are many decades old, even maybe 100 years old. And where do you plan to acquire the native landscaping? I'd like to know. And then the renderings show mature plantings that will require many years to achieve that size and the amount of water it would take to get them to that size. So how do you reconcile the mandate to conserve energy and hence water if the landscaping will require a lot of water to reach maturity of the size shown?
Sure. So the rendering takes some artistic liberties, of course. As with any project, when you first go in with the landscaping, it's going to be pretty minimal in terms of size. Fully grown plants are expensive, and so there's a mixture here. So I wouldn't expect to see anything of this size right off the bat. It is all drip irrigation. So we're doing our best to select plants that do not have a high water requirement. And once again, I would love to see any resources on great places to source these. I know our landscaper probably has his typical nurseries that he goes to. But, you know, I want this to be a collaborative effort for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Kathleen Radnich is on this meeting tonight, and she kind of heads our demonstration garden. And if you haven't been over to see it, it's really beautiful, and it's using all native, drought-tolerant plants that work well in this environment, low water, and a lot of ideas. It's not just rocks and cactus. It's, you know, it can be really very, very beautiful. While you're on this slide with the water usage, you know, residential is supposed to be 55 GPD, and we are in a severe drought. Mm-hmm. We've had no rain to speak of this year. We're supposed to have a dry spring. There's a movement at the state. We had a legislative meeting this morning to even get our daily use down even further than 55. I would really hope that, I know your CUP said, oh, you're going to put stuff in people's rooms about, you know, recycling and trash. And I hope water will be part of that, and water use. Because, I mean, out here, people put a 5-gallon paint bucket in their shower so they're not wasting water. Mm-hmm. And your guests will be using more water than our residents are basically allowed to use. I hope you be able to educate them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we certainly would hope that that's not the case, that our guests are using more water than the residents. You know, the 100 gallons per day is your typical hotel room. Our 60 on average, we would love to get that down as well. I would say that the water heaters in these units will not last as long as a residential water heater. So that is part of what keeps that water usage low. Informational signage, as I mentioned. So it's an ongoing educational process, but we've certainly done the best we can to design these units to meet low flow standards.
What is your typical occupancy per unit?
That's a great point as well, because obviously these 55 units are not going to be 100% occupied all year round. So that 60 gallons per day is per occupied room. I think we see averages of 60 to 75% occupancy on these units. I don't know exactly the number, what they're forecasting for this property in particular, but that's around what I'm seeing.
My actual question is there one person per room, two people in a room? How many people basically are in a room?
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's one queen bed and a fold out futon. So typically 3 guests per room, often two parents and a child.
So you get 2 to 3 people and you're still able to meet the 60 gallons per day?
That's right. That is based on what we see at our other properties that have that same type of occupancy.
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem. Thank you.
Sam, a couple more questions. This is Jane. How large is the hot water heater in each unit?
I believe it's 15 gallons.
Okay. And the other question is, do you know how many Joshua trees are on the property?
I believe we have 7 on our property. And those all have protective barriers around them. There are also more on those adjacent parcels, which I showed you on that overview, that we're not touching that area at all. But all the Joshua trees on the property are being preserved.
Okay, I didn't think there were that many, but there's 7. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to have more, of course. You know, you would have to design around it. But yeah, we would love to have more Joshua trees on the property. Is it impossible to get new Joshua trees, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
It is impossible as of August of this past year.
Gotcha. And that comes along with you can't remove Joshua trees, so you can't take them from anywhere and bring them. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Vicki, I have a question or two.
Sure.
Okay. Can I talk?
Where'd you come from?
I'm hanging here. 2 or 3 questions regarding water. One is your laundry off-site or on-site?
Laundry will be off-site. We will not have. We'll probably have one machine just for doing rags or something, but all the linens and everything will be done off-site.
Okay, that helps with the level of water you're using. Also, Are you cooling the Airstreams with evaporative cooling or air conditioning?
Air conditioners.
Okay. That's my water questions.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's sort of the last of the informational slides. The rest is just some imagery here. Once again, obviously, this is our Russian River property, so the environment is very different, but this gives you a sense of the general scale of development and the feeling of the experience. Here's the clubhouse at Russian River as well. Yosemite Clubhouse. Well, nighttime shot. This is our pool and meeting area at Yosemite. This is our accessible suite. So once again, we have full ramps here. The unit is designed to be fully ADA compliant, which is great because that means that we can truly provide an outdoor experience to people of all levels of abilities. When I was out at our Cape Cod property last weekend on our first night, we actually had our first wheelchair-bound guest on the property, which I thought was pretty exciting because that's oftentimes people who can't have that kind of experience at a lot of other options. And this is, once again, the typical Airstream layout. As you'll see here, this is the fire extinguisher that I mentioned. We have one outside each unit and one inside each unit as well. So that is the last of the presentation. I'm happy to take any more questions.
Thank you. Let me start.
I have a question.
Yeah, let's, is that, who have I got here? I got Barbara?
Yes.
Go ahead, dear.
You said that you guys want to hire local, and also you want to have collaboration between local landscapers. How would someone get in touch with you or whoever would be in charge?
Sure. Well, so you can start with me. My email address is sam@autocamp.com. And we also have the job posting on our website, which is at autocamp.com. I'm more on the development side rather than the operations, but I can certainly get anyone in touch with, our folks at the operations team who are going to be building out our local on-site team there, and also heading up, the partnerships with the local food and beverage programs and experience programs.
And then I also have another question. The 55 units, I mean, obviously there has to be wastewater hookups to each unit. How is that being handled? Is that piped into the wastewater treatment segment, or is there some dumping procedure you guys have?
No, not at all. So yeah, it's all underground utilities. So that's what we're installing right now is our sort of on-site wastewater distribution. And then there's a hookup at each trailer that just goes straight to the trailer. So those hookups never get disconnected unless we were ever needed to remove an Airstream for some reason. But yeah, it's all distributed underground.
Sam?
Yes.
I might have missed it when I was watching your slide presentation, but is there a water treatment with this desert abode that you're putting together? I mean, there's one here on the screen with this one. Are you planning to have a visual water something, or is it going to be like a dry rock riverbed for the real effect of the desert?
We do not, unfortunately, have a large water feature like this at this property.
Okay. Thank you.
You do have a pool, though.
We do have a pool, yes.
Will that be open to locals?
Only on the 4th of July.
Oh. Well. I also have I still didn't hear anything said about MTA. Did they come to you during any of the public hearings, or have you actually gone to them and talked to them about what impact their buses will have on your business or other way around?
You know, we surprisingly did not really hear much from them during the public review period. So it's a great question, and we've certainly been studying the impact of that on our property, but they were not very involved in that public review process, from what I understand.
Will there be a bus stop there?
There will not be one right on our property. We would definitely like to look into that, especially if there was a bus that went into the national park.
Oh, yeah, we wish.
Okay.
All right.
We got really fortunate with our Yosemite property. Right at the front of the property, there was an existing bus stop, and YARTS is the public transit agency there that has buses that go straight into Yosemite National Park. So our guests have direct access to a YARTS stop, which is pretty awesome.
We did have a bus going.
I have a couple of more questions.
Yeah, let's open this. I'll tell you what, Sam, if you could collapse your screen.
Sure.
I can see everybody that's out there. And who was it who wanted to speak? Who had a question?
I have a question or two.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. I'm unmuted. Okay, some of them. Well, actually, there are suggestions as to what to do. Somewhat. That corner at Sunburst in the highway, you guys really should buy that because you don't know what kind of atrocious thing the county can allow there. Really, you should consider buying that because we fought that Dollar General for 8 years and that finally got in. So, you know, we're, and then also speaking of the county, don't know if you're aware, but all the TOT tax that you pay goes directly into the general fund of the county. Nothing comes back to Joshua. Yeah. And that is a concern, and that adds a bit of cynicism to any project coming in here, is that the cost that the community has to that project and the money that's given to that project, given to the county, all goes to the general fund of the county. So we feel exploited on that, and that carries over to you because you come in here with your project and we all give it a kind of a once-over. As far as the art goes, there's a group I assume you've been talking to, possibly MBCAC, which is the Morongo Basin Cultural Arts Council. And that's a good group. And then another thing is, in this article you probably saw in the Desert Sun, there was mention of engaging with an environmental group. I'm vice president of the most pervasive environmental group in the Morongo Basin called the Morongo Basin Conservation Association. And we weren't contacted about this project. Not that we'd have a lot of comments on it, but we were concerned and are concerned on the landscaping of the project. And then also souvenirs. Hopefully it's stuff made in Joshua Tree and or maybe 29 Palms, not Yucca Valley, and definitely not China. Okay, so those are my stipulations. But yes, you better buy that lot at the corner. Really, that's a strong suggestion.
Thank you for the suggestion. If you know the owner, please put us in touch.
Tom, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Who, me?
Yeah, Vice President Flowen. Go ahead.
Well, you know, this is a very edifying discussion, but our purview here is water and sewer authority. That is package treatment authority. And with regard to that, what I'm reading here and there is, now I'm getting into the will serve letter. We've got 625,000 acre feet of water in the ground. Some of it's good. And we're buying water, we're banking water. We have the water. So the issue here primarily is the handling of, supplying water. We have enough. And then with our authority to manage the sewage, package sewage treatment, that seems to be really well explained here in some of this literature that I have. So I read the will serve letter, and it seems like it covers all the bases. Reminds me a lot of the one that we did when we dealt with the college over the Bell Center expansion. But it imposes no burden, financial burden, on the water company whatsoever. All of this stuff is 100% paid for by the people that want to use the land. And so we really, and I also heard mentioned early on by Sam White that he's got all of his county permits. So in terms of all of these concerns that we have, theoretically, I assume they've all been examined and reviewed by the county prior to permitting. So I'm just saying we do have the water, so we have to, I don't see how we can avoid doing a will serve letter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Director Reynolds, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, I haven't heard from you. I want to let you get in real quick here.
Okay. Well, from what I see, the project looks well designed. The water in and water out seems to meet my satisfaction. Other than that, I don't have a lot to comment about.
All right, then I will open it up. Got a lot of people here. Anyone else like to ask questions or make comments?
This is Jane.
Jane, go ahead.
I had some questions from the materials that I read earlier today. One was that there's something to do with the flood zone, and it said something about elevating everything.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Anyway, it said something about the flood zone.
Sorry, it wasn't me.
It was Piper Court, I see. Anyway, it said something about elevating all lowest floors at least 1 foot so we don't get flooded out. What kind of things are you doing to raise everything a foot?
Yeah,
I have 2 or 3 little things, and then maybe you can answer them all. Yeah. And the other was that I noticed quite a plan for recycling garbage, refuse from landscaping, and it says that garbage or refuse is going to be taken out 2 times a week. We only get one time a week garbage pickup here. And are you making a special arrangements to get stuff out of there more frequently, especially when you have a larger capacity? And you did mention something about solar. Maybe you could say, is it only on the common building, not on any of the trailers? And your pictures do show shade trees. I wonder what kind of shade you're talking about. Those are my things.
Okay, thank you for the question. So going down, so starting off with the flood elevation. So all of our structures were designed to be raised the 18 inches above the adjacent grade. So, and that was all part of the building permit review process, confirming that. So the deck of those structures is above that level.
Okay.
The garbage, that's a good note. To be honest, I don't have a good answer for that. So I would need to look into that. If our operational plan says 2 times a week, and if that service isn't available, that's just a conversation I need to have with the local garbage authority. So thank you for that comment, and I will look into that. And then the shading. Shading will be provided. We have the trees that we're providing, but as you have mentioned, they take a while to grow in. So we have shade structures as well. Each Airstream unit is going to have a shade structure that covers at least that outdoor patio area. And then the Clubhouse facilities also have an extended shade structure, which is where those solar panels are. And yes, the solar panels are just at the Clubhouse, but they tie into our on-site power grid. So they're powering more than just the Clubhouse facility.
And what are your plans for high winds?
For high winds, yes. Our contractor is out there dealing with those as we speak. So the shade structures, we took into account the wind loads, and any sort of canvas material would definitely be removed during high wind conditions. So that's sort of the main way of handling that. We've also done wind studies on our Airstream units and on the structures as well.
Usually the wind comes in kind of straight line west winds. Anyone whose Airstream is facing the west is going to get blasted.
So luckily we have experts on this, and the architect we hired did a wind study. And so what they were showing was generally winds coming from, I guess, the northwest. So they oriented every single Airstream to be facing the southeast, actually, taking that into account.
Madam President?
Yes.
Steve Bardwell has been dying to make a comment.
Where's Steve? I don't see him.
Just below to the right of you.
Oh, well, Steve, definitely. Let's hear from Steve Bardwell. Hi there, Steve.
Hello there, and thank you, Sam, for being here and fielding these questions. We really appreciate your being here. This is great to hear. A couple of questions pertaining to the conditions of approval that were granted. How does this development intend on satisfying your condition of approval number 114 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 5%? And how will compliance with number 66 to incorporate other measures that will increase energy efficiency, increase insulation, use energy efficient water heater systems be complied with? How are you intending to satisfy those conditions?
That's a great question. And I think to give an appropriate response, I would probably have to, after the fact, give more of a well thought out type response on how exactly we're addressing all of that. I think, on a high level, just using efficient fixtures and water heaters and the solar that we're providing. But that would require a more detailed response. And I would be happy to provide that after the fact.
Great. It'd be real interesting to hear just how you're intending on doing that. And along that same line, the Airstream traders, they're not required to comply with Title 24 energy requirements, and they're not particularly energy efficient structures. How do they satisfy? How does that meld into this question of satisfying those two conditions of approval?
Sure. It is sort of an interesting situation where the RVs have their own code, which is created by the RVIA, which is the Recreational Vehicle Association. And so we meet all of their standards. These are RVIA certified units, and they are limited to 50 amps each, just simply because that is the maximum energy that those can take. So the energy of these units will never exceed that 50 amps. And there is a smart controller within each unit so that if multiple appliances are being used that would put us over that 50 amps, it will prioritize and shut off different appliances to make sure that that never happens.
Yeah, because if this were to be a stick-built structure, of course, these structures would be able to, I would think, incorporate more energy-efficient components. They don't have the appeal of an Airstream, which has a certain mystique to it, but it certainly would not be as it's a more energy intensive development utilizing Airstreams in hotels. But that's really just sort of an aside. I have one other question which occurs to me. I'm sure you're aware that within our area, as well as many parts of California, there is a real housing shortage. There's very, very difficult to find housing within the Joshua Tree and within the Morongo Basin area, with the many short-term rentals that are contributing to some degree to a deficiency in the housing stock. with the people that you're hiring, where do you think they're going to live?
Well, hopefully they're people that don't have to move at all, because our goal is certainly to hire locally. So our team on site will consist of a general manager, an assistant general manager, front desk and guest delight managers, housekeepers, and a maintenance team. So I can't guarantee that 100% of that will be people who are already living in the Joshua Tree area, but that's certainly our goal, is to have as many as possible come from the local talent pool. I can't speak, too much to the housing shortage, other than the fact that, this is a commercially zoned property. So we are not like a vacation rental where we're taking a residential use and essentially converting it to a hotel use. This is a property that is zoned for hotel motel usage. And so we are developing it as such.
Well, thanks very much. I completely understand that. I'm just bringing this up because it is an issue. And I know that many of the people that serve Airbnbs, the house cleaners and stuff, they're finding it very hard to find a place, an affordable place to live. So I'm just raising this issue just to sort of bang the can here, saying this is something that is, it's creating a problem here. And we're not alone, and I'm certainly not looking to you guys to necessarily solve that problem, but it's something I just felt would be helpful to put it out on the table so people can continue to think about it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And, as we go through the next 6 months of really onboarding the operations team, I'm sure this is something that is going to be a big focus for us as well.
Thank you.
President Unger,
Thank you. Steve, you didn't identify yourself.
If we may, President Unger, I'd like to recommend that we take 1 or 2 more questions so that we can get Sam from LAFCO going on his presentation. But would like to also offer that if anybody has any follow-up questions, they can certainly email Beverly and we'll get them in touch with Sam.
Well, that sounds good. I haven't really asked too many questions yet. I would like to know what's the room rate per night?
It varies. It starts at about 200 per night, and then just varies based on time of year, weekend versus weekday. And also because this is sort of a new territory for us, that will kind of adjust as it goes. So it definitely is flexible.
And David Fick, who was speaking earlier, and Steve Bardwell, they're both officers of the Morongo Basin Conservation Association. And they actually both made points that I was thinking of. David referenced the transient occupancy tax, which goes directly to the black hole of the county coffers, that none of that comes back to Joshua Tree. We benefit very little, even from a really nice looking project like yours. The few people that will get some kind of jobs, I think California, the prevailing wage, I believe, is $15 an hour now. We will be responsible here for all kinds of infrastructure, whether it's roads and our water infrastructure. And really, basically, all we will get out of AutoCamp is the money they pay for water. There will be no benefit to us. We're not a taxing entity. We don't get that money to put into our infrastructure. We are developing very fast here, and it's actually getting out of control. Mr. Bardwell mentioned that lack of affordable housing, which, like you say, doesn't expect you guys to do that. It might have been nice had this been affordable housing units, that might have been a little different. But these are things that we're an unincorporated community, and everyone likes the cachet of Joshua Tree. There's 2 communities on either side of us that are incorporated and would love to have had your project. 29 Palms is an artist community. They have a thriving literary community. They have theater. They've even got a casino. They have redevelopment money. They are redeveloping their downtown, and they are incorporated, and they could they could do so much, and it would benefit them so much to have a project like yours in 29 Palms. You're on the way to Wonder Valley, to Amboy, Cadiz, Orchards, the Trilobite fossil fields, Yucca Valley, of course. They don't have any development impact fees. They want as many projects as possible. They're also incorporated. They can use that money. For us, we really don't get anything out of it. And we will be taking, you know, more tourists, more people coming through. And even if you had situated this in 29 Palms or Yucca Valley, those people would still come to Joshua Tree. They'd still drive over here. They might go take the loop in 29 Palms, go to the park, come out in downtown JT. We'd still get them. We would still get the benefit of their tourism. But this puts a huge strain on our infrastructure. And it's really tough to see how, and you're not the only one, Sam. There's, you know, and it's not just the little units here and there. There's some big projects that are looking to get into that cachet of Joshua Tree. And at some point, water is land use. And the state of California is got all kinds of stuff they're looking at, regulations and laws. They know we're in a drought. And at some point, it's going to be a real problem. I mean, we're on the precipice of that problem right now. And I don't know. I just had to say that. So, you know, really attractive project. Did you even think about going to 29 Palms? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at a couple different properties, but we really believe in, you know, the town of Joshua Tree as being a true asset, and, you know, looking forward to being a part of that community, and certainly supporting any efforts in the future to, you know, make downtown Joshua Tree a walkable community. I don't know if incorporation is on the table, but you know, if that's something that would be best for the community, you know, we'd be right there with you all.
Well, we do have our San Bernardino County Local Agency Formation Commission, but that's a huge burden on us, and forcing a lot of development on us and having to make these decisions is just, you know, like I say, as an asset to Joshua Tree, I don't mean to be rude, but you're more of an asset for yourselves and your project than actually an asset to Joshua Tree. And, you know, it looks like you're breaking ground, you're working on it. And just, you know, everyone thinks, oh, it's so great, Joshua Tree. It's so wonderful to be part of that mystique. And, you know, like David said, we can feel exploited. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Sam, do you mind if I put your the email address I have up in the comments for people to contact you, or do you have a general line that you want to send?
I think we actually do have one that's just joshuatree@autocamp.com. And so I will see those responses.
Perfect. I'll put that up for anybody else that wants to contact you with anything else there too.
Sure. Thanks, Mark.
Well, if there are no more questions or comments for Mr. Sam White.
Could I make one
last one? Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, one last. But I just want to plant a seed for the parking lot. Solar panels over the parking lot. I didn't realize cars are going to be parked there for the duration of their visit, and people may not be coming and going. Hot cars sitting there, and it might just, you know, our schools have done it. And I have other comments about the parking lot also that I'll send in an email.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a great suggestion. Okay, thank you.
We really need to move on to Mr. Martinez.
Yep, in there.
All right, thank you all for the time. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all, and look forward to seeing you more over the course of this project.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sam Martinez, you've been very patient. Thank you very much. You've had a warm-up act, and you heard that magic word incorporation there. So when you're ready, go ahead and load your slide presentation for us, and we're ready for you.
Can you see the slide?
Yep, good to go.
Very good. So first of all, I want to thank the board for inviting me to your board meeting. My name is Samuel Martinez. I am the executive officer for LAFCO, otherwise known as the Local Agency Formation Commission. Nowadays, because of the pandemic, agencies have been forced to find ways to figure out a way to continue to meet. And because of the technology that's out there, we now have different platforms that we use in order to meet remotely. And we have Zoom, you guys use Zoom, there's WebEx, there's Microsoft Teams, which makes it easier to attend meetings instead of having to travel from one place to another. You can actually now attend virtually from anywhere, which is really amazing. Anyway, so I'm really glad that Beverly reached out to me a couple weeks ago, and so here I am. Thank you. All right, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with LAFCO, so I thought I'd give a brief background on what is LAFCO and how it came about, if that's okay with everyone. If you Google LAFCO, this is the first thing that comes up, which is a fragrance company based out in New York. It's quite interesting, but this is not the LAFCO I'm here to talk about. So even though the name Local Agency Formation Commission, or its acronym LAFCO, may be viewed as one of the most awkward and confusing name for a governmental agency, the goals and purpose of LAFCO are pretty simple. One, encourage orderly growth, promote logical and orderly service boundaries for cities and special districts, discourage the premature conversion of agricultural lands. Last but not least, promote efficient and effective service delivery for cities and special districts. Following World War II, through the mid-50s, California and all throughout the country experienced a population and housing boom that led to increased demands for government services, and the building of freeways started this city annexation wars, as well as the conversion of a lot of the farmland that resulted in a number of illogical boundaries. I have a few examples where the boundaries, as you will see in the maps, just how ridiculous these boundaries are.
Oh, yeah,
here's the city of LA. This actually predates, actually prior to the war, but it shows how the boundary goes down, although it goes down to San Pedro, using simply portions of the lands along what is now the 110 freeway. And this was simply done by the city in order to annex the port of San Pedro Bay. So back in the day, the city annexed basically San Pedro and Wilmington, those areas, by connecting those two pieces of land along that freeway corridor, just right here. We also have our very own illogical boundary configuration that occurred in the 50s, which was in fact one of the main reasons for the legislation that created LAFCO. This is the city of Redlands. This was the boundary of the city. If you look back, this is the boundary along Wabash Avenue, and this is the city here in Mentone. And that is Wabash right here. And, you know, back in the 50s, this was the boundary. And in 1959, the city annexed what was I guess it was what they called the Lockheed Propulsion Company. That was the manufacturing of rocket fuel propellants. And that was in the Mentone area. And what was used here was simply a sliver of land along the Santa Ana River, right here. This crosses the river here and then it goes this way, which is about 100 feet wide. And basically in order to annex this whole area. My last example here is the city of San Diego, when it annexed back then the city of San Isidro along the border in 1957. Basically, in order to have control over the border and its interest in expanding markets into Tijuana, as well as the economic development surrounding the area. But if you'll notice, I don't know if you see it, you have to have really good eyesight to see the connection between the two areas, which is even smaller than what they use in the city of Redlands. I think this is 50 feet right here. And here's San Diego. And as you can see, the way they took San Isidro was a strip of land underneath the San Diego Bay, which is right here. The then Governor Pat Brown responded to this problem by appointing what was called the Commission of Metropolitan Area Problems that was charged to study and make recommendations how to address what was sort of outlined as a growing complexity of overlapping governmental jurisdictions. A year or a couple of years after, the state, through Governor Brown, espoused this idea of creating a single state-level department or agency to review all boundary changes, incorporations, formations, etc. But local agencies, counties and cities wanted local control at their respective levels for changes in order to accommodate local circumstance. Which in 1963, legislation was introduced that proposed a state-mandated commission in every county in California. It was a local agency with no state appointees or funding. As you may be aware, LAFCOs are funded in the case of San Bernardino LAFCO, 1/3 by the county of San Bernardino, 1/3 by the cities within the county, and 1/3 by the independent special districts within the county. Each LAFCO is independent with local policies, and each LAFCO is independent of all other LAFCOs. So our policies may differ from policies in LA. Our policies may differ slightly with policies in Riverside or San Diego. So each one have their own policies. And there is a LAFCO in every county in California, which is unique to California. There are a handful of states. I think there were, last count, I think there were about 12 that have a boundary type commission. But most are statewide commissions or agencies. A couple ones that are local, such as the state of Missouri has one for St. Louis County, for that county only. Nevada and I think Washington have a boundary commission for a few of their populated counties, and then Oregon has a boundary commission for 2 of its metropolitan areas. So it's unique in entire United States. California is the only one that has a boundary commission, sort of a boundary commission for each of the counties. So LAFCO has jurisdiction over county, cities, and both independent and dependent special districts. LAFCO does not have jurisdiction on a number of agencies, including JPAs and school districts, which I'm really glad. School districts, that's a totally different ballgame right there. The general composition includes 2 representatives from the county, 2 from cities, and 2 from special districts, and 1 public member. And each one has an alternate. Other LAFCOs, some don't have special districts, so they don't have special district representation. Others may have a special member, like LA County has a member specific from the city of LA. So for San Bernardino LAFCO, the current regular board members are Supervisors Joe Baca Jr. and Supervisor Kurt Hagman. And the alternate, who used to be the regular member, is Supervisor Don Rao. The current city members are Larry McCallan from Highland, Aquanetta Warren from City of Fontana, and the alternate city member is Rick Denison from the town of Yucca Valley. The current special district members on the commission is Dr. Cox from Mojave Water Agency. You have Jim Curtalo from Cucamonga Valley Water District, and the alternate is Steve Farrell from Crestline Village Water District up in the mountains. And then the regular public member is Jim Bagley from 29 Palms, and the alternate is Peter DeMeyer from Rancho Cucamonga. The LAFCO statute, which is the Cortese-Knox-Surtsburg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000, is our enabling statute under the government code beginning in section 56,000. LAFCO, just like most government agencies, is subject to the Brown Act as well as CEQA. The Revenue Taxation Code relates to the property tax transfer process that takes place for any changes of organization or reorganization. And like anyone else, LAFCO is also subject to FVPC disclosure requirements. And finally, the commission also looks at the different principal acts that govern the different local agencies. The commission has several functions. These are some of the actions and changes of organizations and reorganizations that you may be familiar with. There are 3 primary functions. There is the regulatory function, the planning function of the commission, and a function to prepare studies, which I will be discussing briefly in the next few slides. First, LAFCO has its regulatory function. By law, any proposal to add land to a city or special district through annexation, creating a new city through incorporation, or creating a new special district through a formation process must be reviewed and approved by LAFCO. Beginning in 1994, the extension of service by an agency outside its boundaries require LAFCO authorization. Technically, cities and special districts are prohibited from extending services outside their boundaries unless they receive commission authorization to do so. This typically happens more often with cities, not much with districts. Districts such as water districts can annex even if they were not contiguous. Also, as a district, you also typically want to charge your standby fees, and you can only do so if the property is within your jurisdiction. So cities can only annex properties that are contiguous to its corporate boundaries. There's an exception to that rule if the property is municipally owned and it's used for municipal purposes, then they can annex those parcels that are not contiguous. And primarily, they do that for tax purposes, so they can, exempt those lands from property tax. All right, the Commission also has a planning function, which is accomplished through its Sphere of Influence program. If you've heard of or read something about a sphere of influence related to an agency's boundary, that is solely a LAFCO designation. A sphere of influence is defined as the probable future service boundary of a city or special district, which is a determination made by the Commission. Basically, it represents the area within which the city or a special district is expected to grow. Lastly, the Commission has this function to prepare service reviews and special studies. The Commission is empowered by the law to investigate the efficiency and effectiveness of cities and special districts, and through that study, propose changes in organization or reorganization where it's appropriate. The service review process started through the rewrite of LAFCO law in 2000. That is done in conjunction with the Sphere of Influence Update Program. And last but not least, there is the function of preparing special studies. By the way, going back to that other slide, or when we did we've done 2 rounds of service reviews. Like I said, the first, when it was made in 2000, the first round of service reviews were done in a, let me see, I have it. Okay. The first round of service reviews were done early 2002 and was finished sometime in 2012 and 13. I don't know if any of you were here back then, but the first round of service reviews were done on a community by community approach. So for Joshua Tree, we looked at all the service providers for the community, which includes your district, CSA 20, there's a road district up here, county service area R19, and then there's the TV district, CSA 70, TV 5. The second round of service reviews, which many of you may be familiar with, is being done on a by service, and the Commission is also reviewing these services on a county-wide basis. So the Commission finished its service review for water county-wide in 2017. It finished its service review for wastewater in 2018. And its service review for fire protection and emergency medical service was done last year. And this year, we completed the review of the cemetery districts. All right, the LAFCO review process generally focuses on 4 areas with regard to boundaries. Do service boundaries make sense? Do they represent a logical boundary for service delivery? Are they consistent with the sphere of influence determination for the agency? We look at the financial implications of a proposal on local government and the landowners within the area. Are the agencies able to finance and provide the services described now and into the future? What are the property tax transfer implications? or assessments. With regard to service, we look at what the range and level of services will be provided. Will the proposal adversely affect the ability of any other government agencies to provide the range of level of service? And finally, every application considered by the Commission must have an environmental assessment as required by CEQA. The information presented to the Commission must address environmental consequences for the application. Other specific LAFCO actions, there are a number of other specific types of changes of organization and reorganization that LAFCO is charged with. Either earlier, I talked about incorporations and formations. The flip side actions are disincorporations and dissolutions of districts. Sometimes a change includes in the form of a merger or a consolidation. Island annexations are unique for cities, where if certain determinations are made on the size of the island, if it's less than 150 acres, if it's developing, if there isn't any agricultural lands, the Commission not only is required to approve the island, they also have the ability to waive protests. And basically, it's to try to remove these islands that become burdensome, and it's just hard to serve by the county, especially if it's surrounded by the cities. Finally, the last one on this slide is the activation or divestiture of latent powers, which is the adding or removing of a service for a special district, which is what you may be interested in. So I was asked to touch on this topic and LAFCO's authority for such authorization of service. In 1970, so back when LAFCO started in the 60s, it was only the county and the cities that were part of it. And then in 1970, at the request of special districts throughout the state, representation on commissions to have a seat at the table for determinations on their boundaries and governance was granted to the independent special districts through approval of legislation that year. I think it was in 1970, which authorized a process to allow for the sitting of special districts on the commission. But that came with a price. And the loss of the direct authority for special districts to activate their latent powers authorized in each district's principal act. So basically the rewrite of LAFCO law in 2000 and then the additional changes legislation in 2001 made it very clear what that process is. A district cannot provide a service or remove a service unless and until authorized by the commission. And those are pursuant to those code sections that are identified on the slide. Government Code section 5682410, point 10, point 12, and point 14. This was your activation of superpowers through LAFCO 3074. It was submitted in 2006 and was approved by the Commission in 2007. The district's request was in response to new directives from the Colorado River Water Quality Control Board regarding the use of septic systems in the region, which resulted in the requirements to install package treatment plants for large developments approved within your area. It was all throughout the area. It was in Yucca Valley and 29 Palms as well. In the past, operation and maintenance of these package treatment plants were assigned to either a homeowners association or a private company. The benefit of having the district take over such systems was that the district not only is a community-based agency in the area, but it has the ability to provide the appropriate level of expertise to operate such systems. So LAFCO approved the district's request limited to the operation of package treatment plants, but included planning and engineering for the full-scale sewer function, which allows the district to now expand district revenues for planning and engineering, which includes the preparation of studies for the feasibility of a wastewater treatment plant and the engineering studies of a sewer collection system or a sewer master plan. And note that the district should be able to avail of grants or low interest loans to not only prepare those documents, but to actually fund the project itself. And once everything is in place, the district can submit its application to LAFCO to expand the services to include the actual provision of collection, treatment, and disposal of wastewater. All that documentation is what is needed to move forward to the next phase. High Desert Water District had a very similar process. They actually had their planning and engineering. They were also assigned the sewer service for planning and engineering only, going back to, I think, sometime in the early 80s. And then in 2010 is when it submitted its application together with all the documentation. There was the water reclamation facility, preliminary design report, and a sewer master plan, as well as the potential funding source. There was the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and an EPA grant, a Prop 84 funding. There was also a state revolving fund allocation. There's a loan from the district. There was a loan from the town of Yucca Valley, including the special assessment that it was going to be implementing for its first phase. So, and they were able to get that, the full scale in 2010. I would add, though, that the difference between when you were given the planning function, as well as when High Desert Water District got its sewer powers, the full scale, there was a change in the law in 2010 that clearly identified that the activation and or the divestiture of function and service is considered a change of organization. So it goes through the whole raft of processes, just like an annexation, where it goes to a property tax transfer, even though there's no property tax transfer because it's already in the district. But because the law has changed, the county still has to adopt a resolution saying there is no transfer. And then the last but not least, after the commission, if the commission approves or conditionally approves such a request, it goes to a protest process, just like any other action by the commission. even though it's, with a protest that it's district wide, it's really hard to get a protest that would terminate it, but it still has to go through that process. Again, just like any other proposal. That's it for me. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Let's start at Director Jarlsberg. Do you have any questions for Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Couple of things. I'm curious what relationship LAFCO has to census results, which will be coming out in some future months. And also what relationship you have with the commission for redistricting that's going on that just got formed.
Good question. On the latter, we have, there is no connection. And then on your former question regarding census, we use census data when we look at population, when we're required to look at population information, when we do the service reviews. We are actually, commissions are required to address the disadvantaged unincorporated communities, and we use that census information to generate the disadvantaged unincorporated communities within the county. And basically what it does is when we identify those disadvantaged unincorporated communities, particularly within a city sphere and adjacent to a city sphere, particularly the ones that are within the unincorporated portions of the city sphere, if they propose annexation of an area that is adjacent to a disadvantaged unincorporated community, the city is required to, it has to be about 10 acres or more. If it's 10 acres or more and it's adjacent to a disadvantaged unincorporated community, the cities are required to also annex that disadvantaged unincorporated community.
So does the census results trigger any actions by LAFCO, or is it the other way around? The city or county entity comes to LAFCO if there's some changes needed?
No, typically they don't trigger anything unless when we do the service review. What we did, and when we started our service reviews in 2010, we took the census data back then, and we said every 5 years we're going to look at that data and then update that data every 5 years. The difference, the problem we had was if you look at it every year, and for example, if we got an action, say from a city to annex an area, and then for some reason it was not a duck right now, and then after a year it becomes a duck. It creates a problem because you didn't tell the city that, hey, you need to annex a duck last year, and now you're going to require them to annex a duck. So what we did was we have a policy that says every 5 years we're going to update that information, and then so we said that we're going to update it after every census, the year after every census. So for example, they did a census for 2020. That information comes out in 2021. It's actually delayed. It's going to come out towards the end of the year. We're going to get that numbers and run the numbers for our data. And then every 5 years after that, so 2021, 2026, and then the next one would be using the new data for 2031.
Director Doolittle, any questions for Mr. Martinez?
I'm just wondering when Does Joshua Basin Water District have to consider a name change with the wastewater powers that we have? Is that something? No? Okay. And could those powers be taken away in incorporation? Let's say if Joshua Tree were incorporated, we could, you know, our responsibility for wastewater could potentially be, you know, become part of the city's responsibility?
That depends. You know, if there is such a move towards incorporation, typically an incorporation would take into consideration all the services that are being provided in that community and are sometimes in many cases are lumped in and becomes one agency. In many cases, there are also cases that they don't get lumped in. So for example, when Rubidoux incorporated a few years ago, they did not include the CSD, Rubidoux CSD, which is their, I think water and wastewater. So.
And I had another question. Did I hear you mention something about assisting with grants for wastewater or something? Did I hear you say something like that?
No, the point was that given now that you have the sewer power for planning and engineering, that allows you to actually go out there and you know, get those grants.
Thank you.
Richter Reynolds.
Well, thank you. Boy, I've heard the term incorporation a whole bunch tonight. Is there something going on I should know about?
I hope not.
That's the only thing I have to say. Thank you for your presentation, Sam.
Thank you.
Vice President Flowen. You're muted, Tom.
Director Flowen, you're muted. Director Flowen.
Yeah. All right.
I had to find the button. I've never unmuted before. What kind of concerns me is, say if we wanted to go from an authorization to do only packaged treatment plants to one that would allow us to do a full regional facility of some kind, that the process to do this would be glacial. If, for example, it takes us to go through a public comment process and all of that here, if it takes 21 days, and then we proceed further into the paperwork and we get up to LAFCO and it takes, for a comment period, it takes another 30 days. If there is, for example, an opportunity to buy a piece of property, well, that property is long gone by the time we have the authority to buy it for some kind of a regional sewage treatment plant of some kind. So what I'm kind of arguing here, there's a phrase in our service review from 2011 that says that LAFCO does not believe that a sewer function and service should include the ability to operate a regional facility at this time. And that's on page 13 if anybody wants to dig. This thing is 10 years old, and another thing that pops into this is how often these service reviews are done. I think you suggested that these things are done on a schedule, but I'm just wondering if some of these circumstances, as we go through this growth spurt here, and maybe we're going to have the requirement to go more to a more regional system, that we won't have the ability to take advantage of land buying opportunities because it takes so long for us to get simply the permission to proceed with these things beyond planning and engineering. Because you can plan to buy a piece of land, but by the time we wait 2 or 3 months to buy the land, it's gone. And so we have to replan. So and also, when we do decide that we want to do a regional plan, it has to, which includes the financing for the thing too. I've been digging in that government code 56,000 group. It has to include all sorts of other financial things and such. But what I'm saying is it's a two-stage thing. First, we want simply the permission to do this, to advance in the area of a regional facility. But then part two is you're going to have a second opportunity to either vote it up or down later on. So I don't see what the caution is about why we can't have a broader authority to do sewage than what we have now.
Good question, Director Flowen. Remember that the planning and engineering service under the sewer function was authorized to the district in 2007. The district should be working on that if it really wants to go in and provide that function. You should be working on getting that process done. The studies, making sure that it's feasible, and all those things. I mean, we're talking it right now, but remember that function was given to the district back in 2007. I think you should. I think, to be honest, I think you should be. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
No, yeah, and like I said, back then, I think years ago, and this was before High Desert did their own thing. There was even a proposal to actually have a regional and a real regional service, which was looking at the Yucca Valley and Joshua Basin. In fact, there was even talk. I don't know if it was LAFCO, but there was even talk about doing it for the whole Morongo Basin, from the Yucca Valley all the way to 29 Palms. But this is what you have to study that, and whether there's a need to collaborate with another entity, or whether you want to do it on your own. Does it make sense to do it on your own? Is it feasible? Those things can be done, and you had that opportunity since 2007.
Yeah, one of the things I have to look at is the actual capacity of some of these package treatment plants, because that may be something that is sufficient for some of our needs. I think that is in some of these documents there, but it's this, the planning. But when it comes to a not only a piece of property that would be ideal for a larger treatment plant, but also the power. We have to have a lot of power there too, and there's issues about connecting all of the plumbing to a facility in a given place. And because of where we are in the pecking order, so to speak, we can't grab a piece of property that comes up for sale that's ideal, because we don't have the authority now to do that. And is it going to be hard for us to overcome this opinion in our service review that says that it's insufficient to do or to have such a thing?
Again, I think the fact that you have the ability to plan for this allows you to go ahead and look at those options and see whether or not this is really something that you want to do. And just like High Desert, took them years to get to where they are. But the same thing, they came in with their plan. Everything was in place. They had the opportunity to provide this. They had all the studies all prepared, ready to go, including where they were going to get the funding to do all of that. And that's something that I think the district should be doing, if that's the case.
But so in other words, I'll wrap this up as quickly as possible. So in other words, we could petition LAFCO now for a broader authority to do regional system if we so choose.
Together with the studies that show that you can do it.
Yeah, yeah, the financial stuff and all that too. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, remember this: the authorization of a service is again almost like any type of change of organization that requires you to provide the plan for service, the fiscal impact analysis, and all those things.
Okay, thank you.
Let's hear from the public. I know we have CAC members here tonight. Anyone want to ask a question, make comment? See none. I have other public members here tonight. Anyone want to ask Mr. Martinez a question? No?
Well,
David, okay.
Okay, well, I've been out here decades, and your previous executive director was telling Joshua Tree, the community of Joshua Tree, that to be incorporated, we would need something in the realm of 25,000 to 30,000 population, but that was by conventional measures, because this was before Airbnb and TOT and all that kind of stuff. A conservative estimate of what the county is getting through the TOT itself is probably between $2 and $3 million. Now, I don't think you can run a town on $2 or $3 million, but that is a large chunk of money. So my question would be, well, the community of Joshua Tree probably should, not through the water district, but through some other entity, approach LAFCO to find out what the feasibility of incorporation is. It sounds like it's still quite distant that we have to double our population at least. And with the Airbnb, it's actually diminishing our population. I also want to give you a caution on census numbers for Joshua Tree. That was in 1980, they were saying we had 4,500 people, about 4,700 people, which was 3 times wrong. The 2010, or no, that was 2000. 2000 was saying we were 4,700 people. In 2010, they were telling us that we had 7,400 people when we actually had 1,500 more people, because they didn't count anything on the periphery, because Joshua Tree is 100 square miles. And they don't like to count the northern half or the eastern, quarter or whatever. So just giving you some information regarding Joshua Tree's population number, which we don't know now, because with Airbnb, it's depressing the general population. So comes the question, we don't know what Joshua Tree can do towards incorporation, because it's a goal that's probably beyond our lifetime, almost beyond our lifetime. Who knows? I don't know if I have any questions. It would be, what is the need, or what's the ratio of overhead that we have to meet? That would be the question for the general Joshua Tree community.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Martinez? See none? Thank you so much for coming and waiting and giving a presentation. You know, at some point we will probably have to do more with LAFCO. And I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. And I'm just going to put it on the slide. If you want more information, you can go to our website, sbclafco.org. You can also access the statewide LAFCO organization, which is www.calafco.org. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email me or call me anytime. And again, I want to thank you for having me for your meeting. So maybe next time, if I'm still welcome, I'll be glad to come back, maybe in person.
Hey, that would be great. We're all looking forward to some in-person stuff.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Sam.
That concludes our workshop. And actually, the last item on the agenda is number 8, and that's a motion for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's one. Okay. Do I have a second? And a second by Jane Jarlsberg. Mark, do we need a roll call? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, now just a strike of the gavel would be just fine.
All right. 8:20. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Have a good night.
you.
Good presentation.
Good night.